Hello and welcome to Hamer Reviews. My name is Christopher Hamer and this is the second part in my How I Make My YouTube video series focused on audio. Now in this video I'm actually going to look at specifically the setup that I use to record my video so that you can get an idea of how I get the quality that I get and hopefully help you learn a bit along the way about how you might want to tweak your setup to actually create great audio. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on this video. If there's too much, pop it in the comments below. It'd be useful to hear your feedback, but it hopefully will give you enough context to understand why I made the decisions that I made. Now, if you watch the first video in this series, of the audio series specifically, I talk about the journey that I had to get to my current audio setup. So I started off trying to use the built-in audio on my Nikon Z6, but I wasn't entirely happy with that. So then I moved to the Rode Video Mic Pro thinking it would solve all my problems. It didn't. In fact, it probably made my life more difficult at the time. I did a bit of research, and this was around the time that the Rode Video Mic Go, which was their sort of clip-on lav mic, was becoming popular. But I decided that that wasn't quite right for me and I needed to go in a different direction. What I found was the Sennheiser XSW-D Lapel Mic set. Now, you can actually see the lapel mic attached to my collar right now, and the actual device also comes with two of these receiver and sender units, and this is what transfers the sound wirelessly to my recording device. Now, I say recording device rather than camera because I no longer record my audio into my Z6. It turns out that part of my challenge, shall we say, is that the built-in amplifier on the Nikon Z6 and Z6 II aren't actually fantastic and produce quite a lot of hiss and background noise that I don't want. To combat this, I use an external audio recorder, called the Tascam DR-70D. I'm going to show it to you in a second, but essentially I use this rather than my camera to record because I can actually fine-tune the audio that I record. So if you give me a moment, I'm going to go and set this up on the table and then we're going to have a chat about it. So this is actually the full audio setup that I use. You can see here is the receiver unit from my XSW-D kit. This is the sender that's attached to the ME1 lav mic that I use. And then mounted underneath my second Z6 here, so I can show you exactly what I'm doing, is my DR-70D by Tascam. Now, the Tascam unit itself is actually very interesting because it has two microphones built into the front of it, which is really useful because you can actually record that as an additional channel if you want. They're very good microphones, but they weren't exactly what I wanted to use, but it is useful having those there if you're in a pickle and need a second set of mics. This is an excellent additional input. Now, the DR-70D is quite an interesting thing. It has a whole load of inputs and outputs. So you actually get four of the professional inputs on the side. So you have left, right, 1 and 2, or you can use them as individual channels, or you have what I use, which is the 3.5mm jack on the side of the DR-70D, which is where I plug in my Sennheiser kit. On the back of it, I get all the various options. I can actually change the amplifier settings with these little dials on the back, which is excellent because it means I can really dial this into my Sennheiser kit, which doesn't have any adjustment. It's one of the issues that people tout with the XSW-D kit is it doesn't have any settings and it comes out quite loud. So in this case, I don't need to turn the amplifier up very much, which means I get reduced noise, which is always nice. It then records that through its much higher quality amplifiers than the Z6 directly to an SD card. Now, this would represent issues in syncing the audio with the video in the future, because if you have separate audio and video, it can be quite difficult to actually get it to match when you say, for instance, say something that your mouth is moving at the same time you can hear the words. So what I then do is I have an output on the DR-70D and I go into the mic input on the Nikon camera. Now, if you're recording directly into the camera, that's all you need to do, essentially, is plug that in, and the camera will take the audio input from the DR-70D and its much better amplifiers and record that as part of the audio on your video. There is one small asterisk, which is that the amplifier on the Nikon will want to play its part as well. Now, if I was using the built-in microphones, or indeed just these mics directly connected to the Nikon, I'd probably have the amplifier setting on 15 out of 30. That's very high, and it introduces a lot of hiss into my videos. So what I actually do is, because I'm using the DR-70D as the output and it's already an amplified signal, all I need to do is turn the amplifier on the Nikon Z6 to 1 or 2, which is more than enough to get clean audio into the camera. You can then use that setup as it is, or you can take the audio file from your external recorder and sync it with the video and audio file in Adobe Premiere or Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve automatically. Both of those have functions where you can automatically replace the audio on a clip with a sound file. So you can either use the clip that's been saved with the recording file on your camera, or you can sync them up later. Personally, I sync them up later because that gives me higher quality audio, because it means I've removed the Nikon amplifier entirely from the process. But I need the Nikon to have that same audio signal, which is then recorded with the video in order to sync it up and save me lots of time trying to sync that later. I actually have a third step beyond this, which you can't see, which I'll show you a still photo of, which is I actually now record my video separately as well. I don't record into the camera, I actually record onto an Atomos Ninja 5. And because that plugs into the HDMI port on my Nikon Z6 to output that video, I actually get the audio signal from the Nikon Z6 via the Tascam DR-70D into the Atomos. So that's doing the same process again, but it's just worth bearing in mind that's how it works. There is an option, if you're doing that, to actually take this mic cable and plug it into the Atomos and record it that way. That's absolutely fine, and you can do it, but I've just found I get better results in terms of syncing the audio if I do it via the camera, so I do that instead. This is by no means the greatest and most fantastic setup, and I'd be the first to admit it. But I hope that it gives my videos relatively good sound quality, and this gives you an idea of what you might want to do in order to improve your sound quality. There are a whole load of different companies that make external sound recorders, down to the handheld mini dictaphones that have USB inputs that you can use, to something like Tascam systems, or I think there's a company called Zoom, not to be confused with the conference call provider that makes them as well. There's a whole raft of companies. I chose the DR-70D because it was relatively affordable at around £200, I think, at the time when I bought it, and it did everything I want to do and much, much, much more. The big inputs on the side of the camera are actually XLR inputs, which are really professional level inputs and outputs, and they are also powered outputs called phantom power. So if you wanted to plug in a really expensive shotgun mic that needs power from such a device, this can actually provide it. It's not something I'm ready for just yet. I always toy with the idea of potentially getting a better shotgun mic and trying that as part of my setup, but in all honesty, I'm really happy with the lav mic that I use, and I think the sound quality is absolutely fine for now, but perhaps that is a road I will go down in the future, just not yet. So yeah, that's essentially the setup that I have. I'm just gonna dismount the camera from the DR-70D so you can see the size of it if I unplug the cable that isn't recording. It is pretty small and pretty light. It's powered by 4 AA batteries, though you can power it through micro USB as well, which is extremely handy if you've forgotten to charge your AA batteries. And it just records to an SD card, which is super simple too. Personally, I think it's the right balance for a lot of people that are sort of starting to get more serious about their vlogging, but don't want to go too extreme. It certainly works well for me, though again, your mileage may vary, it depends on your setup. But this is the specific setup I'm using. A Nikon Z6, the DR-70D, an Atomos Ninja 5, and the Sennheiser XSW-D Lav Mic kit. Works perfectly for me. I think it's a very good setup. considering. But yeah, there's always things you can improve and tweak. But yeah, this hopefully will help you. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, and you well might, pop them in the comment section below and I'll try and address them. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, especially if you didn't find it too confusing there at the end. And if you didn't, the other button works fine too. And please do subscribe if you found this helpful, and if you want to support my channel. It really, really helps. It doesn't cost you anything, but I really, really would appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Goodbye.